Hi everyone, Jason Freeberg here from Snowflake. I wanted to make a quick video to showcase 3 new repositories on Snowflake Labs. And as you might be able to guess from the name, these are all template repositories for getting started with Snowpark. So for example, on the Python one here, you can see that it comes with a requirements.txt, the setup for PyTest, and some PyLint setup as well. And there are GitHub action workflows for PRs and for deploying. And in the source directory, there are stubs for stored procedures, UDFs, and your utilities. And then coming down here to the requirements, to the README, these have the setup instructions for setting your account information, creating the virtual environment, and getting everything prepared. So actually, if you saw the video last week of installing and getting started with Snowflake VCR Pi, and I'll link that in the description below, but I actually used this Python template. So this time, let's use this Scala template over here. So if you want to follow along, you can go to this URL up here or find the repo in Snowflake Labs, and then click use this template and create a new repository. I'm going to put this in my personal account. We'll just call this Scala project. I'll make it public, and then I'll create a repository from template. So the nice thing about generating a repository from a template on GitHub is that it will totally clean the Git history. So you start from a clean slate. So you can see here, it just says initial commit for everything. And then let's clone this locally and open it in VS Code. So you can see here, I'm using VS Code, and there's recommended extensions here. And one of them is Scala Metals, and I already have all of these installed. If you don't have these installed, then in the bottom right corner of VS Code, it'll prompt you to install these recommended extensions. But the one thing I have to do is enable Metals, because I like to explicitly enable it just for my Scala projects. And then once that kicks up here, you can see that there's a build definition for SBT and for Maven. In this case, I'm going to use SBT, but if you're a Maven user, then you can use Maven and you'll get a similar experience here. And so then I'll hit import builds, and in the background, that's going to kick off the installation. That notification is redundant, and then it's doing my builds in the background there. Okay, just walking through the project a little bit more here. So you can see under the source directory, I have stubs for an example UDF, a sample stored procedure here, and then under my test directory, I have tests, and we'll get to those in just a minute. So in this app class here, there's a run method, and this is just a really quick hello world stored procedure that creates a 2x2 data frame, shows how to register that UDF from the other class over here, call that UDF from the data frame, prints it to the console, and then counts the number of records and returns that. And then I have a main method down here. So what we can do is just run this directly from the IDE. So you can see here, it's creating a session, connecting to Snowflake, and then right there, it's registering that temporary UDF, and then printing the data frame to the screen here. And then it's done. So now it's just closing the terminal for me. Now, what I can also do is hop over to the test directory. And so this has some stubs for writing a test case for a stored procedure. So it has a given, when, then setup. And then creates a local session here, and then uses that to run the stored procedure. So if I click run on this, then that will kick off the Scala test, and then I'll get my integration with the IDE over here, which is pretty nice. And we'll just let this finish up. Perfect. And then there's also a test case for the UDF, so we can run that over here as well. And perfect. So now I have a starting point if I wanted to strip out that UDF implementation or the stored procedure implementation, I can do that and then start writing my own, or I can just copy paste, and it sort of takes away all of that boilerplate that you'd have to do yourself and gives you a starting point to build an application on Snowflake using Snowpark. So let's say that I've made a change here. I'll go into my procedure. Let's just add a print line saying running stored procedure. And then I'll save this. And I'll come over to GitHub, make a new branch, create this branch, bring that over. Okay, so what I've done here is created another branch, made a commit on that. I'm publishing that branch. And now I'm going to create a quick pull request. And then what this is going to do when that pull request is created, that is going to kick off these 2 pull request checks here from the GitHub Actions workflow. So these workflows are included in the Scala example here, as well as the Java and Python templates. So this will require that you have the account credentials set as secrets on GitHub. And so we'll get to that in just a second, but you can see down here, the first job will test the application. So it'll do an SBT test and then build the app to make sure that the tests pass and the app can build. And then down here, this will lint the code using Scala format, and then throw an error if the PR doesn't match the linting rules. So what we're going to do is hop back to GitHub, and so you can see here the test job failed because it wasn't able to connect to Snowflake. So what we're going to do is hop over to settings and then come down into secrets and variables and create a new repository secret. So what you'll have to do is just for each of these environment variables here, just like you did for your local setup, just copy and paste the secret values into this form on GitHub. So I'm going to do that real quick and then we'll come back. Okay, and we're back. So here I've created all of the repository secrets, same ones from my local environment variables. And so what we'll do now is come back to that pull request, go to that failed PR run here, and then we can rerun this job. So you can see here the lint job executed instantly because that one passed last time. If we come into this test case here, setting up Java, running the test case, and then this is going to use those account credentials that I just put as GitHub secrets to connect to Snowflake to run that test case for the stored procedure, and then it'll pass, and then we can merge this pull request and then show the final GitHub Actions workflow in the template. Okay, so I cut some of that out there, but you can see here we're good to go now. So the test case finished, and the test step finished in 47 seconds, and the builds finished in 20 seconds. So we'll come back to pull requests here, and then I'll go ahead and merge this in. And so when I merge this pull request in, that is going to kick off the second GitHub Actions workflow, build and deploy. And again, this is in all 3 of the template repositories. So you can see this gets kicked off whenever there's a push on the main branch or whenever a release is created. And then this will rebuild the application from that commit, publish it to the GitHub artifacts directory, or excuse me, artifact registry. And then the second job will download that artifact and then run this resources.sql script to upload that, first create the stage if it doesn't exist, then upload that artifact to the stage, and then finally run the DDL to create the stored procedure pointing to that artifact. So if we come back to GitHub and go to Actions, we can see here that this job has already been kicked off. And the build job is running, and it's running that test case again. Okay, so the build job completed, and we can see here that it ran the test, built the app, and then we tagged that artifact with the commit ID for that last commit, and then uploaded it to the deployment job. So if we come back to the overview here, we can see that the artifact was also uploaded here. This makes it easy to come back and check this artifact. If there was something that went wrong after we deployed to production, we can still inspect the source and then pull that down and unzip it locally. And then in this deployment job here, we installed SnowSQL and then ran the deployment jobs, and then created the stage, uploaded to the stage, and then created the stored procedure. Okay, and so now to just drive this all the way to the end, if we come back to that resources.sql file, we created the stored procedure as hello world procedure. So what I can do is come over to Snowsite and then call hello world proc. And then since the stored procedure was uploaded to the stage and we ran the DTL to create the stored procedure, I can now call this, or really anyone in my account can call that stored procedure. And you can see here it returns with the value of 2, because the stored procedure just creates that little 2x2 hello world data frame, and then the value that it returns back is just the count of that little data frame. So, hope you enjoyed the demo. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about these project templates, feel free to comment below or open an issue on the template repositories. And if you have any recommendations, feel free to open a pull request with your changes, and I'll be happy to see that. Thank you.